Hey, what's up, Grace Students Online? I'm so excited to join with you tonight. Thanks for joining us on Visit Grace Students YouTube channel. I'm super pumped to be bringing you guys the message tonight. We are in our last week of the series, What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do. This series has been incredible. It's been teaching me a lot, of in situations that are hard, I don't know what to do, like looking at Joseph's life and seeing how we can respond based on how he responded has been really great for me personally. So I hope you at home, wherever you're at, that you have been able to learn from this and have been able to discuss it in your grace group online. And I'm so thankful that you guys are with us and that you still are joining and are a part of Grace Students. Just because you don't come on a Wednesday physically doesn't mean that you're not a part of the family. So we love you. I'm so glad that you're joining us online. One of my favorite things that people can get me, like I'm a big coffee drinker. Okay, like if you roll up and you get me Starbucks, I'd be pretty happy. Okay, this is iced coffee with a little bit of soy milk and 2 pumps of vanilla. All right, so remember that order. You can write it down, replay the video, write that down. If you ever want to bless me, you can give me that drink. Okay, and I would love you forever. But it's even better when you roll up to a coffee shop, and as you get older, especially I was in college, budget money's a little tight. I got to pay for some things. I got to pay for school, trying to stretch out my money as much as I can. And so sometimes I would go to coffee shops and I would plan to not order anything. Okay, I would just go to hang out with my friends or maybe do some homework. And then I'd be waiting in line with my friend and I'd be like, oh no, I'm not getting anything. And then they would say, oh, no, don't worry about it. Like, I got you. Those words are like the greatest words you could ever hear as a poor college student. Don't worry about it. I got you is the greatest phrase that you could ever hear. I'm sure you guys know that too. Like, when somebody offers to pay for something, like to pay for your food or pay for a drink or pay for something or anything, it is amazing to hear. And the best thing is when you hear those words and then they don't expect you to pay them back. Like, how amazing is that? The worst thing is when somebody says, "Don't worry, I got you," and then like 10 minutes later they're like, "Oh yeah, you'll just owe me $4 or how much it was. Like in a couple days, it's fine." Like that is the worst. But when people offer to pay for something and they don't expect payback, that is the greatest thing. But honestly, like, we often want to get paid back, right? We want to get, like, if we offer something to buy something, our natural inclination is like, yeah, it's a loan type thing, because that's what our culture is. We expect payment in return from doing something. So not only, though, does the idea of paying somebody something back come up with money and buying things, but it also comes back around talking about when people hurt us, right? You've probably heard that phrase, like, I want to get payback on something that you did. See, when somebody talks behind our back, we want payback. If our boyfriend or girlfriend, they break up with us and they start dating one of our friends, we want payback, right? If there's situations that arise that, say you have a group outing and they forget to text you that your friends are going to do something, we want payback. Like, payback is natural. We want payback. We want revenge. It's just so much inside of us that we want to give people what they deserve. And it's in moments that we are hurt that we want to pay back the most. Right? When we're hurt, when we're upset, when we're angry, when we're frustrated, when we're mad at our friends, that's the moment that we want to pay back. It's not like we get all scary movie, like, revenge story, you're out for blood to get this person. No, but it's more subtle. But really, I've realized that really the closer that we are to a person, the more we want payback. I remember the people that I want payback with the most growing up was my 2 brothers, right? If my older brother Drew, if he hit me or if he argued with me, if he got me in trouble, oh, you better believe I'm coming after him, right? Like my brothers. But if somebody else's friend did something to me, I wouldn't care as much as I would when my brother does something. Because we naturally want payback for people who are close to us. And payback comes in a couple different ways. The first way is public payback. That's when you make it known to not only that person, but other people around you that you're paying them back, that you're getting that revenge. Maybe they say something to you, and then you bring it up in class. Like, maybe you drop a comment, like, on your Zoom chat, like, at school, saying, like, oh, like, at Billy, who was the worst friend to me this way. Like, that's public payback. We talk bad about somebody. We maybe drop a comment, right, like on their Instagram post or whatever it is. Like, we pay them back publicly. We can also do it passive aggressively. Now, this I think is the most actually the second most common. The next one is the most common, but this one happens a lot, right? Where we don't necessarily make it super known that we're paying them back, but maybe we just ignore them for a really long time, or maybe we post something on our Snapchat that is totally directed to them, but we just never say their name, right? This happens a ton, where we're paying them back, but we're not actually being direct about it. And then there's one other way. It's imaginary payback. I'll let you guys know, I am an expert at imaginary payback. And this is what it means. Like, have you ever gotten into an argument, or maybe with a teacher, like you have a disagreement with one of your teachers, and the next day, like as you go home, you're like thinking about the conversation you're going to have with them, and you start scheming and planning, and all of a sudden, like, you have a full-fledged argument built out in your imagination of what you're going to do to get them to pay back. And then at the end of it, you're like, oh man, I'm going to get them so good, but you never actually say something, right? That's imaginary payback. I'm an expert at that. Okay, I used to do that all the time, right? But we set things in our mind that we're going to get even. We want to get even. We want to pay people back. And then the most satisfying, probably, of all forms of payback is just watching people that hurt you, watching them fail. Like, how satisfying is that for us? That, you know, when somebody breaks up with us, that then their next relationship ends terribly. Or when our parents, when they snap at us, like, after we do something and they snap at us, and then they come back later and have to apologize and are really sad and upset. We kind of like that, as awful as it is. Or maybe that one person that bullied you when you were in second grade. Second grade, right? You forever have in your memory of this person that all you want to do is see them fail in life, even though it's been like 6 years down the road. Because in those moments, it feels like justice is finally, it feels like justice is happening, like that they finally got what was coming to them. And that is actually the exact situation that we see Joseph, all right, as he is finishing up this story. All right, so I encourage you guys to get out your paper Bible and follow along with me. If you need to pause a video, go get your Bible, okay? Maybe grab a notebook right now so you can start taking some notes, because we're going to dive in to the end of Joseph's story in Genesis chapter 45. Okay, Genesis 45. Pause the video, go grab your Bible, go find it, and then come back and let's dive in. All right, so in this series, right, we've been journeying through the life of Joseph. And his story is crazy, right? We've talked about it week to week, where oftentimes in his life, he didn't know what to do next. I know if I were Joseph, I would have no idea what to do, like pretty much all the time, right? Early in the series, we talked about how Joseph knew he was his dad's favorite. He rubbed it in his brothers' faces, and then he had dreams, right, about he was going to be in charge of the whole family. And then he told his brothers about it. Not the best look. And then, because Joseph was super annoying, his brothers plotted to kill him, but ended up throwing him in a pit. And then he went from a pit to a slave in Egypt. And then he went to a slave in prison in Egypt. And then we saw last week that he interpreted the dreams of Pharaoh and suddenly became from a slave to a slave in prison to now the second person in command in Egypt. Isn't that crazy? So he interpreted this dream, and Pharaoh trusted Joseph. Pharaoh saw that Joseph was wise because Joseph walked with the Lord, The Pharaoh saw all these things in Joseph, and so Joseph was elevated to second in command. That's crazy. Imagine where he was before. He was sitting in prison, and now he is second in command. But here's the plot twist. So while he's in Egypt, second in command, a famine strikes the land. A famine and a drought. A famine and a drought, that means like when the food and water supply are short. And when that happens, like famine, when a drought comes, right, your crops don't grow, so you can't grow grain and make bread. And your livestock, like your animals, they're not growing as well. And so you have a shortage of food. But luckily, Joseph, he was able to interpret the dream of Pharaoh that was actually God telling him about this famine that was happening. And so Joseph, being really wise and a great leader, he planned for this famine. And he started storing up grain for Egypt. All right, he stored it all in so that when the famine struck, they would be okay, that they would have food. And here's the crazy thing. Not everybody did that. Not everybody knew there was a famine. Only Joseph knew, and he was storing up for Egypt. So when the famine hit, it not only hit Egypt, but it hit Joseph's family. It hit Joseph's family. His dad, Israel, it hit him. And so them and all of their all of Joseph's brothers, they're starting to starve. Okay, they're thirsty. They don't have grain. They don't have food. They don't have anything. And so they have to go to Egypt to find help. They have to go to Egypt to try to get some food, which is crazy, right? The same people that threw Joseph in prison now are going back to him to ask for food. So they arrive into Egypt, and they first don't know it's Joseph. They don't recognize. They think he's dead, right? They think he's long gone, a goner. They don't recognize that Joseph is who the person they're talking to is. So huge drama begins to unfold between Genesis 42 and 50. Like, I'd encourage you, I did this in college. It was so fun. I read through the whole story in one sitting. It's only 8 chapters. I'd encourage you to do that after the sermon tonight. Just read the story in its entirety because it's really interesting. It's actually one of my favorite stories in all of Scripture. And so you can read all of their interactions, but let's pick up in Genesis chapter 45. We're going to read verses 1 through 3. Then Joseph could not restrain himself before all those who stood by him, and he cried out. So they're in a meeting right now. Joseph and his brothers are in a meeting, and they're begging for food. They're asking Egypt to help them out. And so he said Joseph could not restrain himself, and he cries out, "Make everyone go out from me." So no one stood with him while Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept aloud, and the Egyptians in the house of Pharaoh heard it. Okay, so Joseph, he makes himself known to his brothers. So he says, look, guys, I'm imagining he takes off fake glasses and a fake beard, and he's like, it's me. I've been Joseph the whole time, right? No, so he starts to weep and cry because his brothers are hurting. Then he says, I am Joseph. Does my father still live? But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed in his presence. Imagine the tension and the emotion in this moment. Joseph was face to face with the people who tried to kill him and who did sell him into slavery. The same brothers who did that, ironically now, are asking him for help. See, this is the moment where I sit back and I'm imagining myself in this moment of like, oh, here it comes. The ultimate time to pay back. I've been imagining this situation for years at how I'm going to get back at my brothers, and finally, my time has come. Everything was set perfectly. Joseph he could manipulate his brothers. He could hurt them in the best way possible. Everything was ready. Joseph could have refused them food. He could have thrown them into prison. He could have given them a taste of their own medicine, sold them to slavery. He could have even had them killed. Because they were certainly willing to do that with him. I want you to pause and think about this. What would you have done in this situation? For real. Like, when we read the Bible, oftentimes we don't read it like it could be us in that story. What would you do in this moment? Would you seek payback Would you be passive aggressive about giving them food? Would you ask them to return it to you later? Actually start to think about this. Actually go ahead and, if you want, pause the video and actually think about that question. Ask that question and say, what would you do in this situation if you were faced with the people who tried to kill you? Because honestly, like, I look at my life and I don't know what I would do. I think, obviously, I'd like to say that I would be kind and forgiving and loving. But I know in times past, like when I talk about me and my brothers, like in fighting and stuff like that, I'm usually not. It's hard to be kind and forgiving. But Joseph here, this is a very interesting thing. So starting back in verse 4, so Genesis 45, verse 4, it said, Joseph said to his brothers, please come near to me. So he says, hey, come close. So they came near. And then he said, I am Joseph, your brother. I just think that line is so beautiful. Like, he just reminds them of who he is. He doesn't say, I'm just Joseph. He says, I am Joseph. I am your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. So he reminds them. He says, hey, this is what happened. I'm your brother whom you sold. But listen to this. But now, do not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years the famine has been in the land, and there are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. So he says, it's already happened for 2 years. There's 5 more years of famine. And God sent me before you to preserve a posterity for you in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. When I read that, I'm just like amazed at that response. Joseph didn't try to get payback. Joseph wasn't passive aggressive. He didn't do an imaginary fight in his head. Joseph actually forgave. And I want you to notice how he forgave. Because he does say, he says, I'm your brother whom you sold into slavery. He actually acknowledges the hurt. You know, he says, hey, you guys did hurt me. You sold me into slavery, but it's actually a good thing. Can you believe Joseph saying that his whole life, living in slavery, almost being killed, right? Being driven out of his master's house, like almost dying in prison, to now saying, guys, I understand. This is a good thing that happened. And the reason why Joseph was able to do that is because he was able to forgive them. He was able to forgive instead of hold that grudge. He was able to let go instead of fighting to see them in pain. So Joseph went on to tell his brothers to get their whole family and to come and to move out to Egypt so they can live, so that they can be blessed, so that they can continue to grow their family. And then this happened. It's chapter 45, verse 15. Moreover, he kissed all his brothers and wept over them. And after that, his brothers talked with him. See, not only did he forgive them in action, but he truly meant it. This is where we see God do the impossible. It's a miracle that Joseph and his brothers' relationship was restored. People don't normally forgive people who have killed or tried to kill them. If somebody tried to kill you, you would not want to forgive them. But God can bring peace to relationships. God can make a bad situation good, all because of forgiveness. See, when it comes to people hurting us, we have the opportunity to choose something better than payback. In fact, when we don't know what to do, when you don't know what to do, pursue peace instead of payback. Right, in this series, we've been talking about a lot of hard things in life. We've been talking about what happens when you don't know what to do if your parents start telling you that they're wanting to get separated. We'll be talking about maybe the hurt that you've encountered through bullying at school. And it's often those high intense, like those moments of you have to make a great decision. Those are the moments that you don't know what to do. It's not the easy decisions that we don't know what to do. Those are easy. It's the difficult life circumstances where we don't know what to do. But as we see in Joseph's story, forgiveness is the best option, always. It always is the best option at how we can love, how we can forgive, how we can pursue peace. And the reality is it's hard, because when we pursue peace, we lay down our right to get payback. We say, I don't care about them getting what's deserved to them. Right? If they try to kill me, so be it. I want peace with them. You know, Jesus put it this way. He said, if somebody slaps you on your cheek, turn to them the other one as well. If somebody hurts you or wrongs you, we should not seek revenge. As Christians, we should seek peace. Always. Regardless of how much it hurts. Regardless of how much we think they deserve it. Regardless of how much we hate them and dislike them and wish they never existed, and how much they bullied us and hurt us, and how much they've tried to tear my family apart, and how much all of this stuff happens, they deserve peace because Jesus gave us peace. Jesus gave us forgiveness, so we need to forgive other people. Right, at the end of the day, it says we can forgive because God first forgave us. And if you're a Christian, if you believe in Jesus, God has forgiven you from a multitude of sins. God has forgiven us from the life, from honestly, the same thing that Joseph's brother did to Joseph, we do to God. We try to push him out of our life. We say, we don't want you. We're going to sin against you. We're going to put you far, far away. But Jesus brought us in close and said, I forgive you. And because of that, now we can forgive others who hurt us. And so tonight, as you guys go into your grace group, I want you all to think about those questions. Like, think about maybe the things that you've been hurt by and how you can seek reconciliation, how you can seek peace, how you can seek a relationship restored. So when you don't know what to do, when you're in a high-stress situation, when somebody hurts you, pursue peace instead of payback. I love you guys so much. Have an awesome time in Grace Group, and we'll see you next week.